Commander Jack Lucky Sterling stared at the endless expanse of space through the bridge viewport and wondered, for the 1000th time, why humanity had been so eager to patrol the absolute middle of nowhere. The Terran Space Force had given him and his crew the prestigious assignment of monitoring trade route 7 billion, which was basically the intergalactic equivalent of a country back road. Their ship, the T.S.S. Shenanigans, was currently drifting through a sector so boring that even the stars looked bored. Commander called out Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez from his navigation station. "I'm pleased to report that absolutely nothing has changed in the last 4 hours. The void remains void-like. The emptiness continues to be empty. And I'm pretty sure that space dust over there just yawned." "Thank you for that riveting status update," Lieutenant Sterling replied, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled brown hair. "Officer Chen, any exciting developments in our thrilling mission to watch nothing happen?" Communications officer Mei Chen swiveled in her chair, her expression deadpan. "Well, sir, I've catalogued approximately 47 different ways to say all clear in the last 2 hours. I'm currently working on number 48. The situation remains as eventful as a quantum physics lecture to a golden retriever." The bridge crew chuckled. This was typical of life aboard the Shenanigans. Despite being one of the newest ships in the fleet, they'd drawn the short straw on assignments. The running joke was that their ship's AI had offended someone high up in command by suggesting their dress uniform made them look fat. Commander, the ship's AI, affectionately nicknamed Bob, chimed in with its surprisingly surfer dude voice. "Might I suggest we spice things up with a thrilling game of Count the Micrometeorites? I'm currently winning with a score of 7,392,841 to your collective 0. Sterling was about to respond with his own witty retort when Officer Chen's console suddenly lit up like a Christmas tree, having an existential crisis. The unexpected activity nearly caused her to spill her contraband coffee, technically not allowed on the bridge, but Sterling ran a relaxed ship. Sir Chen called out, her tone shifting from bored to professional in an instant. "I'm picking up a distress signal. It's weird." "Weird how?" Sterling asked, straightening in his command chair. After 3 months of nothing, weird was practically a party invitation. "It's broadcasting on frequencies I'd never seen before, but somehow our systems can read it. The translation matrix is saying it's a recipe for something called Grandma's Cosmic Cookies. No, wait, that's just the carrier signal. The actual message is, oh wow. Don't leave us in suspense, Chen. What are we dealing with?" "It's a merchant vessel, sir. Claims they're being pursued by pirates. But here's the kicker: they're using technology that makes our most advanced systems look like 2 tin cans connected by string. And they're asking for help from, and I quote, any of those charming primitive species in the area." Sterling felt a grin spreading across his face. "Finally, something interesting. Primitive, huh? Well, we wouldn't want to disappoint our advanced friends. Rodriguez, plot an intercept course. Bob, power up all systems but keep our weapons cold. Let's not seem too primitive right off the bat." "Aye, aye," Captain Bob replied cheerfully. "Shall I prepare my collection of human idioms to confuse our new alien friends? I've been saving some real doozies." As the Shenanigans changed course, Sterling couldn't help but feel that familiar tingle in his gut, the one that had earned him the nickname Lucky. Something told him this wasn't going to be just another Tuesday after all. Though he had to admit, being called primitive was a new one. Usually they at least waited until after he'd introduced himself to start with the insults. "Chen, send a response. Keep it professional, but maybe slip in a subtle hint that we're not as primitive as they might think. And ask if they've heard of something called Murphy's Law. I have a feeling they're about to get a crash course in human history." The merchant vessel, as it turned out, looked like what would happen if someone had given a drunk architect unlimited chrome and told them to design a space cathedral. It hung in space like a giant abstract sculpture, all sweeping curves and impossible angles that made Sterling's eyes hurt if he looked at any one part too long. Bob Sterling called out, "Please tell me you're recording this. The folks back home are never going to believe we found aliens whose design philosophy is more is more." "Already on it," Commander Bob replied. "Though I should note that according to my aesthetic analysis protocols, this ship ranks somewhere between modern art fever dream and my circuits hurt." As they approached, the merchant vessel's massive form dwarfed the Shenanigans, making their state-of-the-art patrol ship look like a rowboat next to a cruise liner. The pirates, however, were nowhere to be seen. "Chen, Open a channel, Sterling ordered. Let's introduce ourselves to our fashionably advanced friends. Before Chen could comply, their view screen flickered to life on its own. The alien that appeared looked surprisingly humanoid, if you ignored the fact that its skin was shifting through various shades of purple, and it had what appeared to be crystalline antennae sprouting from its temples. "Oh, thank the eternal harmonics," the alien exclaimed. "You must be the humans we detected. I am Captain Vreeks of the merchant vessel Resplendent Market Opportunity. We require immediate assistance from your—" It paused, consulting something off-screen. "Quaint vessel." Sterling raised an eyebrow. "This is Commander Sterling of the T.S.F. Shenanigans. We'd be happy to help, though I'm curious about these pirates you mentioned. Our sensors aren't picking up any other ships in the area." Vreeks's color shifted to a deeper purple. "They're using cloaking technology far beyond your sensor capabilities. The Kardaks are the most feared pirates in this sector of the galaxy. They're ruthless, efficient, and—" The alien captain's speech was cut off by a violent shudder that rocked both ships. 3 massive vessels suddenly materialized around them, their designs as black and aggressive as the merchant ship was chrome and flamboyant. Sterling had to admit, as far as dramatic entrances went, this one was pretty good. "Ah," Sterling said calmly. "I'm guessing those would be our pirates." "Kardak's warships," Vreeks confirmed, now cycling through purples so quickly it was like watching a strobe light. "We're doomed. Your primitive weapons will be useless against their shields, and our ship's defensive systems are purely decorative. We focused our technology on making everything shiny." Rodriguez turned from his station with a grin. "Sir, permission to show our new friends why humans have a reputation for being trouble." "Granted," Sterling replied, then addressed Vreeks. "Captain, you might want to watch this. Bob, initiate Protocol Murphy." "Oh hell yes," Bob said, dropping all pretense of professional AI behavior. "Initiating everything that can go wrong will go wrong protocols. This is going to be fun." The lead Kardak ship, a behemoth of sharp angles and threatening protrusions, opened a channel. Their captain appeared on screen, a reptilian figure with too many eyes and what looked like cybernetic implants covering half their face. "Primitive vessel," the Kardak's captain hissed, "remove yourself from this sector or be destroyed. This is not your concern." Sterling put on his best diplomatic smile, the one that always made his superior officers reach for their antacid. "Actually, you made it our concern when you threatened a vessel requesting our help. Also, could you maybe cool it with the primitive talk? We're starting to develop a complex." "You dare joke in the face of your destruction," the Kardak's captain snarled. "We are the most advanced military force in this sector." "Yeah, about that," Sterling replied, his smile turning predatory. "Bob, show them why humans have a saying about assumptions making something out of someone." "That's not quite how that saying goes," Sir Bob chimed in cheerfully, "but I like your version better. Deploying countermeasures now. Also, I've taken the liberty of naming this maneuver the Murphy Special." What happened next would later be described in official reports as a series of improbable but technically feasible events. What actually happened was that humanity revealed its greatest military secret: sometimes the best technology is no technology at all. The Shenanigans launched what appeared to be space debris, literal junk, directly into the paths of the Kardak's ship's energy weapons. The resulting explosions created an electromagnetic pulse that their advanced shields weren't calibrated to handle, because who would be primitive enough to use actual physical projectiles? Humans would. Humans absolutely would. I'm starting to think. Sterling mused as they watched the Kardak ship's systems go haywire, that maybe being underestimated isn't such a bad thing after all. "Chen, send a message to command. Tell them first contact has been established, and we might have accidentally started a war. Also, ask them to send more ships. Something tells me this is about to get interesting." On the view screen, Captain Vreeks's color had shifted to what Sterling could only assume was shocked white. You defeated Kardak's warships with garbage." "Technically, it was strategically deployed surplus material," Sterling corrected. "But yes, basically we just won a space battle by throwing trash at them. Welcome to dealing with humans, Captain Vreeks. We're full of surprises. News travels fast in space, especially when that news involves a supposedly primitive species taking down 3 Kardak's warships with what amounted to a cosmic slingshot. Within hours of the incident, the Shenanigans found itself hosting an impromptu delegation of various alien species, all of whom seemed to share two common traits: an intense dislike of the Kardax, and an even more intense fascination with humans. "Let me get this straight," Sterling said, addressing the assembled aliens in the ship's conference room. "You're telling me that the Kardax have been bullying basically everyone in this sector for decades, and nobody thought to just throw rocks at them?" "Our civilizations advanced beyond physical projectiles eons ago," explained Professor Zena, a tall, willowy alien whose species apparently evolved from something like sentient trees. She had appointed herself the unofficial xenoanthropologist of the group and hadn't stopped taking notes about human behavior since coming aboard. The very concept of using non-energy weapons is considered. "What's your charming human phrase?" "Ah yes, Stone Age thinking." "No offense," Professor Rodriguez chimed in, "but maybe that's your problem. You all got so focused on moving forward that you forgot sometimes the old ways work just fine. It's like my abuela always says, why fix what isn't broken?" Zena's leaves rustled with excitement as she furiously documented this new idiom. "Fascinating. Your species applies wisdom from food preparation elders to military strategy. But please, explain this abuela concept. Is it a rank? A title of special wisdom?" "Speaking of military strategy," interrupted General K. Tok, a sturdy warrior type, whose species looked like someone had crossed a rhinoceros with a mountain, "we need to discuss the Kardax. They will return, and in greater numbers. They cannot allow this humiliation to stand." Sterling grinned. "You know where I come from. That's exactly the kind of thing we like to hear. Bob, pull up the tactical display. Let's show our new friends why humans have a reputation for turning problems into opportunities." "Displaying our greatest hits now," Commander Bob announced as a holographic display sprang to life in the center of the room. "I've taken the liberty of adding appropriate background music. Nothing says humanity's greatest military victories quite like classical rock." As ACC's Back in Black began playing, Sterling walked the assembled aliens through a greatest hits compilation of human military history. The delegates watched with a mixture of horror and admiration as Sterling explained concepts like guerrilla warfare, asymmetric combat, and the fine art of making the enemy underestimate you. "You deliberately allow yourselves to appear weak," asked Admiral Pix, a floating orb of iridescent gas contained within a sophisticated environmental suit. "This goes against all accepted military doctrine." "That's kind of the point," Sterling explained. "Look what happened with our first encounter. The Kardax saw a primitive ship and assumed we'd be an easy target. Instead, they got a face full of specially designed space junk that turned their own shields into impromptu electromagnetic pulse generators. But surely they will adapt to such tactics," K. Tok rumbled. "Of course they will," Sterling agreed. "Which is why we'll do something completely different next time. Humans have a saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice." He paused for dramatic effect. "Well, that's just not going to happen." Zena's leaves trembled with academic excitement. "Your species deliberately cultivates tactical unpredictability. This explains so much about your ship's name. Shenanigans, it's a declaration of your strategic philosophy." "Actually," Bob interjected, "we named it that because Commander Sterling once convinced an admiral that it was ancient Earth for harbinger of peace. The paperwork was processed before anyone thought to fact-check." The room fell silent as the aliens processed this information. Finally, Admiral Pix spoke, their containment suit shifting through various colors of amusement. "You lied, to your own superior, about the name of your warship, as a joke." "In my defense," Sterling said, "it was a really boring day at the Academy." "This is perfect," K. Tok declared, pounding his massive fist on the table hard enough to make everyone's coffee cups jump. "The Kardax pride themselves on their rigid hierarchy and predictable patterns. They will never be able to adapt to an enemy who treats warfare like a game," Rodriguez suggested. "Like an improv comedy show," offered Chen. "Like Tuesday," Bob added helpfully. "Yes," K. Tok roared. "To all of those things I don't fully understand, but sound appropriately chaotic." Sterling looked around the room at their newly assembled alliance, a professor who treated human idioms like the greatest scientific discovery since faster-than-light travel, a warrior who was starting to understand the tactical value of practical jokes, an admiral composed of gas who was already calculating how to weaponize confusion, and his own crew, who looked like they'd just been told Christmas was coming early this year. "Well then," he said, "I guess it's time to teach the galaxy why picking a fight with humans is generally considered a bad idea. Bob, switch the music to something appropriate for planning widespread mayhem. Way ahead of you, Sir Bob replied as Trouble by Pink started playing through the ship's speakers. I've already compiled a playlist titled Songs to Commit Interstellar Mischief to. Zena's leaves perked up. Oh, is this another human military tradition? Musical accompaniment to tactical planning? It is now, Sterling declared. Lesson 1 in human warfare. Everyone's style points count. The next few days aboard the Shenanigans looked less like military preparation and more like a particularly chaotic summer camp. Sterling had turned the ship's cargo bay into what he called the Human Warfare Appreciation Society, where he and his crew took turns introducing their alien allies to various aspects of Earth military history, strategy, and most importantly, the art of being absolutely infuriating to fight against. The key to psychological warfare, Sterling explained to his rapt audience, is understanding that sometimes the best way to defeat your enemy is to make them defeat themselves. Rodriguez, demonstrate the water bucket principle. Rodriguez had rigged up a simple contraption involving a bucket of water balanced on a partially open door. This, my friends, is what we call a practical joke. By itself, it's just annoying. But imagine hundreds of these, each one different, each one making your enemy increasingly paranoid about opening doors. But it's just water, K-Talk rumbled skeptically. How does this translate to space combat? Replace the water with sensor scrambling, Chaff Chen suggested. Now every time they open a bay door or create an opening in their shields, they don't know if they're about to get a face full of electronic confusion. Or better yet, Bob chimed in, make them think there might be chaff, but actually do something completely different. Human warfare isn't about the pranks themselves, it's about making the enemy think everything might be a prank. Zena, who had filled several data pads with notes by this point, raised what passed for a hand. Is this why you insisted we paint smiley faces on all our ships' hulls? To psychologically unbalance the enemy? Partially, Sterling admitted, but mostly because imagining the Kardaks trying to explain to their superiors that they're being defeated by ships with smiley faces brings me joy. Admiral Pix's containment suit rippled with what they'd all learned to recognize as laughter. My tactical officers report that they've successfully implemented what you call the wiki-edit strategy on Kardak's communication channels. Their battle manuals now include warnings about humans being able to teleport through solid matter and turn invisible at will. Beautiful, Sterling grinned. Remember, the goal isn't to make them believe it, it's to make them waste time and resources trying to disprove it. Nothing disrupts a military hierarchy quite like paranoia. Commander Bob interrupted. You might want to see this. The Kardaks have just issued new fleet-wide protocols in response to our activities. The holographic display showed a lengthy document full of increasingly desperate regulations. Every ship was to be equipped with anti-teleportation fields which didn't exist. All personnel were to carry devices detecting invisible humans, also not a thing. And most importantly, any ship displaying emotionally manipulative imagery was to be considered an immediate threat. They've classified smiley faces as a weapon of war, Chen reported, trying desperately to maintain her professional composure and failing miserably. This is unprecedented, K-Talk declared. The Kardaks have always relied on their technological superiority. Now they're spending more resources trying to counter imaginary human capabilities than actually fighting us. Sterling nodded sagely. As a wise human once said, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean we're not out to get you. Though I might be paraphrasing that slightly. What's our next move? Rodriguez asked. They'll be expecting more pranks and psychological warfare. Exactly, Sterling said. Which is why we're going to hit them with something they'll never see coming, absolutely nothing. The room fell silent. Nothing, several aliens asked simultaneously. Nothing, Sterling confirmed. We'll gather our fleet, paint more smiley faces on our ships, set up obvious traps, and then just sit there. Can you imagine anything more psychologically damaging than waiting for humans to do something weird and having them do nothing at all? Zena's leaves rustled with academic excitement. The absence of action as a form of action. The weaponization of anticipation itself. Commander, your species continues to demonstrate levels of psychological complexity that border on the pathological. Thank you, Sterling replied. I think. Bob, add doing nothing suspiciously to our tactical database. Already done, sir. I've filed it under P for psychological warfare and D for diabolical. As Sterling looked around at his assembled allies, the warrior learning to appreciate practical jokes, the scientist studying the military applications of human humor, the gaseous admiral implementing meme warfare, he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. The Kardaks had no idea what they'd started when they dismissed humans as primitive. One more thing, he announced. Bob, show them the special project we've been working on. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be standard emergency beacons, the kind used to mark shipping lanes and hazard zones. Except these had been modified with what Sterling called the party package. When activated, these beacons will broadcast a continuous loop of human-cat videos on all Kardak's frequencies, Bob explained. We're calling it Operation I Can Has Victory. You're going to defeat an advanced alien empire with videos of small Earth predators engaging in amusing behavior, K-Tok asked incredulously. No, Sterling corrected. We're going to defeat them with the knowledge that we could fill their command and control systems with cat videos at any moment. The cats are just a bonus. This, Sterling reflected, was turning out to be the most fun he'd ever had in a military campaign. And they hadn't even gotten to the part where they'd rigged all their ship's external speakers to play Never Gonna Give You Up during combat maneuvers. The Kardak's response fleet arrived exactly as expected, in perfect formation, with overwhelming numbers, and completely unprepared for what Sterling called Operation Why Are You Hitting Yourself? Status report, Sterling commanded, watching the massive fleet of black warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel in textbook attack patterns. 217 Kardak's vessels detected, Rodriguez reported, all of them broadcasting what appears to be anti-smiley face countermeasures. Our fleet is in position, Chen added. Professor Zenner reports that all ships have activated their suspiciously doing nothing protocols. The combined fleet of human and alien vessels hung in space, their hulls decorated with increasingly elaborate smiley faces. Some of K-Tok's ships had even added winking emojis, which their tactical analysis suggested would be particularly aggravating to the Kardak's command structure. Bob Sterling said, Initiate Phase 1, the waiting game. With pleasure, sir. Beginning to do nothing. Suspiciously. The Kardak's fleet approached cautiously, their sensors no doubt going haywire trying to detect non-existent human superweapons. Minutes stretched into hours as they waited for the tricks, traps, and general shenanigans that had become humanity's trademark. Finally, the Kardak's command ship opened a channel. Their admiral appeared on screen, all 12 of their cybernetic eyes twitching with barely contained stress. What are you planning, humans, they demanded. Where are your weapons? Your tricks? Your infuriating tactical irregularities? Sterling put on his most innocent expression. Planning? We're just sitting here, Admiral. Having a nice quiet day in space. By the way, have you heard of something humans call reverse psychology? The Admiral's eyes twitched harder. You're trying to make us think you're trying to make us think you're not doing anything while actually doing something. Or Sterling suggested, we're trying to make you think we're trying to make you think we're trying to make you think that. There was a long pause as the Admiral visibly tried to process this statement. Several of their cybernetic eyes seemed to be attempting to blur independently. Bob Sterling whispered, Execute Phase 2, release the kittens. Across the battlefield, the modified beacons activated. Every screen, console, and display on every Kardak ship suddenly filled with endless loops of Earth cats doing cat things. Kittens pouncing on laser dots. Cats knocking things off tables. Felines of all sizes being simultaneously adorable and mildly destructive. What? What is this? The Admiral stammered. Some kind of mind control weapon. No, Sterling replied cheerfully. Those are cats. The internet loves them. We thought you might too. Sir Rodriguez called out, fighting to keep a straight face. The Kardak's fleet's formation is breaking down. Multiple ships are reporting their crews are watching the cat videos instead of maintaining battle stations. That's when Phase 3 began. Admiral Pix's ships released clouds of iridescent gas that, while harmless, looked exactly like the chemical weapons the Kardaks thought humans had. K-Tok's vessels began broadcasting random segments of human musical theater directly into enemy ships. And Professor Zenner's science vessels started transmitting detailed academic papers about the psychological impact of prolonged exposure to human memes. The Kardak's fleet's rigid command structure, already strained by weeks of dealing with increasingly bizarre human tactics, finally snapped. ships began breaking formation, their crews too busy either watching cat videos, trying to prove humans couldn't actually teleport, or arguing about whether Icon's cheeseburger represented a legitimate form of psychological warfare. Commander Bob announced with what could only be described as digital glee, "I think now would be the perfect time for Phase 4 the Rick roll." Sterling nodded solemnly. "Make it so." The external speakers of every Allied ship activated simultaneously. The opening notes of "Never Gonna Give You Up" echoed through space as their fleet began the most coordinated dance maneuver in military history. Each ship moved in perfect synchronization, their formations spelling out a giant animated smiley face. The Kardak's admiral watched in horror as their fleet dissolved into chaos. This is impossible. We are the most advanced military force in the sector. We cannot be defeated by cats, memes, and the power of coordinated dance numbers," Sterling suggested helpfully. "I've got bad news for you, Admiral. Not only can you be defeated by those things, but you just were. Bob, show them our terms of surrender, the ones written entirely in emojis." As the Admiral's cybernetic eyes finally gave up and began rebooting themselves one by one, Sterling couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity had officially arrived on the galactic stage, and they'd done it not with advanced technology or overwhelming force, but with the most powerful weapons in their arsenal: creativity, unpredictability, and the universal appeal of cats doing stupid things on camera. Sir Chen reported, "The Kardak's fleet is standing down. Their crews are demanding more cat videos before they'll consider returning to base." Sterling leaned back in his command chair with a satisfied smile. "Send them the one with the cat afraid of the cucumber. That one's a classic." 1 month after what historians would later call the Great Cat Video Victory, much to the Kardak's eternal embarrassment, Commander Sterling found himself standing before the Galactic Council, trying to explain exactly how humanity had managed to end a decades-long reign of terror with nothing but memes and psychological warfare. "Let me see if I understand this correctly," the Council President, a being composed entirely of floating geometric shapes, said. "You defeated the most advanced military force in the sector by making them paranoid, confusing their command structure, and showing them videos of small Earth predators engaging in amusing behavior. Don't forget the synchronized dance number," Sterling added helpfully. "That was Rodriguez's idea. He's quite proud of it." "The dance number is not the issue," another council member interjected. "Their species appeared to be some kind of sentient crystal formation. The issue is that you've completely disrupted the balance of power in this sector. The Kardak's Empire has submitted a formal request to join the Galactic Federation as a peaceful member state, on the condition that they receive regular updates of what they call cat content." "We've also received reports," a third council member added, scrolling through a holographic display, "that several Kardak's warships have begun painting their own smiley faces on their hulls. They're calling it cultural exchange." Sterling tried to look appropriately serious, but it was difficult when Bob was privately sending him images of Kardak's crews attempting to recreate popular memes with their own species. The one with the cybernetically enhanced Kardak's warrior looking confused at a holographic butterfly was particularly inspired. "In light of these unprecedented developments," the President continued, "the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's role in galactic affairs." Here it comes, Sterling thought. The lecture about responsible use of power, the importance of maintaining diplomatic protocols, the need for proper military decorum. "We're appointing you as the sector's primary peacekeeping force." Sterling blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "The logic is sound," the Crystal Council member explained. "No other species has demonstrated such effective methods of conflict resolution with minimal casualties. Your approach to warfare is unique." "You mean crazy," Sterling suggested. "We mean effective," the President corrected. "Though yes, also arguably crazy. But perhaps that's exactly what this sector needs. Traditional peacekeeping methods have failed for centuries. Your unconventional approaches seem to work." Besides, another council member added, "The Kardaks are terrified of you. Not because of your weapons or technology, but because they never know what you're going to do next. They've developed an entire strategic division dedicated to analyzing human internet culture." Sterling considered this. "So you want us to keep the peace by being unpredictable?" We want you to keep the peace by being human, the president clarified. Though we do have one condition. What's that? Professor Zenner has requested permanent assignment to your vessel to continue her study of human behavior. She's particularly interested in something called dad jokes and their potential applications in diplomatic situations. Back on the shenanigans, the crew celebrated their new assignment in typical human fashion by teaching their alien allies to play practical jokes on each other. Professor Zenner had already filled several databases with her analysis of human humor. K-Talk had discovered a surprising talent for pun-based warfare, and Admiral Pix had perfected the art of what they called strategic confusion deployment. You know, Sterling said to Bob as they watched Rodriguez teaching a group of Cardax officers the choreography to Thriller, I don't think this is what anyone had in mind when they said humans would eventually join the galactic community. Perhaps not, Bob agreed. But you have to admit, it's much more entertaining this way. By the way, sir, the Cardax have formally requested permission to establish something called Space Instagram. Apparently, they want to share photos of their warship's new paint jobs. Sterling grinned. Approve it. And Bob, make sure they know about hashtags. I have a feeling Cardax cosplay is going to be trending soon. As he watched his human crew and their alien allies planning their next peacekeeping mission, which somehow involved teaching the entire sector about flash mobs, Sterling couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not by being the strongest or the most advanced, but by being exactly what they'd always been: wonderfully, chaotically, unpredictably human. And if that meant occasionally having to explain to the Galactic Council why teaching an entire alien empire about Rick-rolling constituted a valid diplomatic strategy, well, that was just part of the job. Commander Chen called out, trying to suppress her laughter. The Cardax just submitted their first meme for approval. They want to know if I can, as Galaxy works as a caption. Sterling leaned back in his chair and smiled. You know what? Tell them it's perfect. Bob, make a note in the ship's log. Turns out the Galaxy wasn't ready for us after all. But they're learning. Noted, Sir Bob replied. Should I file that under profound observations or things that will probably get us in trouble later? Both, Bob. Definitely both.